and gentlemen, welcome to Eat, Sleep, Suplex, Retweet.
Welcome everyone to Eat, Sleep, Suplex, Retweet on Patreon. My name is Ross McLeod. This is Ross's Retro Reviews. Today on Ross's Retro Reviews, we will be reviewing a pay-per-view that outshone its predecessor, Backlash 2000. A pay-per-view so good it outshined WrestleMania that year. But first, I have to introduce my guest. He's a man who's caused many a backlash with his sweep and quiz wins. He is David Haughney.
Hi Ross, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
You know what, I'm actually quite pleased with how well I've done this year in terms of quizzes, and I've actually won my first sweep this year as well, so I'd say it was a good result all round.
Very good, very good. I had a sweep win this year, but I didn't have a quiz win. I had one. I think I competed on one quiz.
Right. Yeah, was that the Attitude Era win, or was that?
WrestleMania.
Right.
I posted the Rumble one, so.
Yeah, I remember. I think we were both on that.
So, before we start, you're listening to Eat, Sleep, Suplex, Retweet on Patreon, the $4 and $6 level. Just to give you a bit of information, if at any point you feel that you don't have the money this month to support us, we completely understand. However, we would like to announce that we do have a free tier where Saturday Draft Live is completely free, and we also have a $1 level where you could give something to the podcast. It's only a little bit, but we appreciate it immensely, and it means, you know, until you're able to afford the $4 and $6 level again, we will, you know, you'll be helping us out, and we vastly appreciated it. If you want to listen to our free content, you can find us Suplex Retweet on Spotify, Anchor, iTunes, and all good Android sites. Free reviews, previews, interviews, and so much more. SuplexRetweet.com if you want to just keep up to date, and you'll find our social there, which is at Suplex Retweet on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So, as we jump into Backlash, the main story coming out of WrestleMania was the United McMahon front. DX and the McMahons are together. Triple H and Stephanie are still the company's top two champions. And the promo package going into this is all about The Rock looking for revenge. And to get a bit of fairness, Linda McMahon has put Stone Cold Steve Austin in The Rock's corner. The two biggest stars in the Attitude Era together taking on McMahon and DX. Dave, you didn't watch wrestling about this time, so what were your thoughts, just the opening video package to like sell the show to you? Did it sell the show to you, or did you think it could have been done better? You
know what, I think the hype around the main event itself, obviously with two big names in The Rock and Triple H, I think that would have sold the pay-per-view regardless. But I think it's the fact that all their sort of main focus was on this match and saying this is the marquee match you need to see, and if you want to see it, you have to watch this full event. And I think that was back in the day. I think that's kind of what really sort of sold these big events. It's either just one marquee match that they hype over a series of weeks or months. But I think they definitely missed a trick when it came to WrestleMania that year, because it is widely regarded as probably one of the poorest manias as well. So seeing this hype as well, and with also the sort of wild card unpredictability of will Stone Cold Steve Austin turn up or not, it just adds an extra layer of intrigue.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Austin SmackDown beforehand said he's not on the Rock side, but he's not on DX's side. He's on the side of Stone Cold Steve Austin. He'll do what feels right, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Was he still injured at the time with his neck injury?
Yeah, he doesn't return to full-time action until he returns at Unforgiven 2000, and he has his first match at No Mercy 2000, I believe.
Okay.
So he's still a bit away for being like we don't see any stunners here. We just see like chair shots and what have you. Yeah,
well, probably the best thing for him, given that, you know, if he wasn't 100% recovered, I think the best thing to cause a bit of anarchy and chaos in an already sort of chaotic match was to just get him to do chair shots to everybody. And the amount of people that took some pretty big chair shots, I mean, fair play to them for doing it. The guys like Patterson and Briscoe, who were sort of acting as sort of lackeys for Vince and stuff.
Yeah, 100%. We'll get more into that later on when we talk about the main event. But first off, our first match, DX, X-Pac and Road Dogg with Tori versus Edge and Christian, and Edge and Christian's first ever tag team title defense on pay-per-view. So I would like an apology from anyone who has ever slagged my love for Billy Gunn when you see Road Dogg and X-Pac, because DX is on its arse at this point. It exists now only to help Triple H. This is not the Outlaws of old. This is, let's take together the last remnants of D-Generation X.
Yeah, the last remnants of DX is, it's kind of like when David Otunga and Michael McGillicuddy were the last remnants of the new Nexus. That's kind of what this DX tag team felt like.
Yeah, 100%. So before we start, Deborah is the special guest ring announcer.
Oh,
who the hell thought that was a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, like, for one, you couldn't hear her. Secondly, it just sounded so cringy. Like, she's just not cut for, I mean, I'm sorry, but she's not cut out for a ring announcer type role. Like, she doesn't have the charisma and enthusiasm like Lillian Garcia does.
100%. She actually announces Edge and Christian to the ring, and it sounds as if she gets bold mid-sentence. She goes, Edge and Christian.
Yeah, it's like she just sort of does it after like a few drinks, or she just does it without any prep whatsoever. Like, she's just like, somebody picked out the crowd would have done a better job.
I think it's more the fact that she was Steve Austin's wife at the time. She was off TV, helping Austin with his injury. I think maybe she showed up with Austin and they thought, oh well, let's get you to do something.
Seems a bit of a rubbish call, to be honest. Like, it just didn't serve any purpose or benefit.
No, 100%. So before the bell rings, massive X-Pac sucks chance. We always talk about X-Pac heat. This is in full effect here. The crowd do not like him. And we mentioned, Marcel and Scott, that the New Age Outlaws versus the Dudley Boys on a pay-per-view at No Way Out 2000 felt like sort of generations colliding. It felt like the 90s meeting like the 2000 plus tag teams that were going to take WWF into the future. D-Generation X versus Edge and Christian, that also feels a bit like generations collided. It feels like I mentioned how DX seemed like they were on their way out. To me, it looks like, they look out of place here.
Yeah, very much so. Like, Edge and Christian were obviously they just won the Triangle Ladder match at WrestleMania prior, so it was a big win for them, and I think the best way to go about it was to give them a pretty solid title defense. But I mean, going against like DX, you thought, oh great, this should be interesting, but when you see it's just Road Dogg and X-Pac, it goes back to that argument, saying, oh, we're going to go against, say, the Nexus, for example, but it's just Otunga and McGillicuddy. That's how much of a disappointment it was.
Yeah, we often talk about NWO because how bad it was, like how it died with a whimper, but DX itself, it's one of those things, it's never really had the proper end.
It kind of it just fizzled out.
Yeah, it just fizzles out, sort of. I think the biggest pop in this match is when Tori tries to get up on the apron, but Road Dogg runs into her. That's a lost art, I think, in wrestling. See, when a manager takes a bump, a manager that keeps trying to interfere in the match, and then as soon as they get hit, the crowd go wild because it's like, yes, they've been doing my nothing, get them. Yeah,
I think the bit after it as well, I think when X-Pac gets hit with the ring bell, that was quite a nasty spot as well, given the extent of the damage it did.
Yeah, I was about to mention that, the finish of the match. So DX have been sort of cheating the entire match. So distracting the ref, Tori's been getting involved, and it's a bit of turnaround fair play. Christian basically goes, well, you want to cheat? I'll cheat then. Grabs the ring bell and rattles X-Pac right in the head with it for the free count.
And the sort of scar it left behind, it was like, this was a time when, blading was kind of still a thing. and that was a good cut that he got right across his head.
This actually led to X-Pac being sidelined because 6 days later, which will be reviewed by myself and David Campbell, Insurrection 2000 happens in London, England. X-Pac is sidelined with 6 stitches. Originally it was meant to be X-Pac and Road Dogg versus the APA, and it turns into the Road Dogg with Tori in his corner versus Bradshaw in a singles match with Farouk in his corner. So definitely affects the next pay-per-view, and just it just sort of shows the extent of how far DX had fallen, for the simple fact there was no one there to team with Road Dogg.
Exactly, yeah.
So we cut backstage, and it's our first backstage promo of the night. We see a limo. We speculate, is that Stone Cold? Who is it? The limo opens up, and walking, just looking like $1 million. Here comes The Rock. The arena erupts. Like, he just has this charisma about him, just such a swagger.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this was peak Rock, especially in the Attitude Era, when it was a time where the fans were really on board with the Attitude Era, considering that The Rock was arguably the best talker in the business at the time. And the guy, like you said, he just oozes charisma wherever he goes.
Something that they did, and it's highlighted by the Rock Triple H rivalry, which is something that they don't do these days. They don't have ready-made replacements for when they lose big stars in WWF anymore. When Stone Cold and Undertaker got injured at the same time, they were the top face and heel respectively. So as soon as they both get injured, it was a case of, right, well, Rock's moving up to top face and Triple H is moving up to top heel. And in the background you had Kane as the secondary babyface, and you had Big Show and then Kurt Angle as the secondary heel. They just had they had such a production line of big stars and people ready to fill that void that it was such a different time.
They were all treated as big deals, so any of them could have stepped in whenever somebody was taken out abruptly.
Yeah, 100%. Second match of the night, light heavyweight championship match, Scotty 2 Hotty versus Dean Malenko. We see a clip of Malenko winning the title on SmackDown. He could not have been more clearly holding the ropes if he was wearing them like a hat.
I mean, I didn't quite catch that. Well, I don't really remember that clip from SmackDown, but yeah, it was. I think I just saw a brief glimpse of it. It was just so blatant that, how could the ref not see it?
Yeah, it's one of those ones. See, when they need that sort of storyline, like, you need to suspend your disbelief almost. Like, it's one of those moments where it's like, come on, how did the ref miss that?
Aye. Can I just say one thing about this? This was probably one of my favourite matches the entire night.
See, this is regarded by many because the light heavyweight title never got its due in WWF. It was used as a sort of prop by Dean Malenko. He had it at WrestleMania. He has it at Insurrection. He basically has tag matches and just sort of holds the title. This is the first time we've seen him defend the title. It's the first time in the year 2000 it's been defended on a pay-per-view. It's sort of become a joke title. This is regarded as many as the best match of the light heavyweight titles run.
Yeah, and I can see why, because obviously Dean Malenko being an amazing, technical wrestler, he showed exactly just how good he is with the whole submission game, attacking Scotty's legs at one point, and the variety of moves he's got. The guy's I can see why he's called the man of 1,000 holds, because he could do absolutely anything.
Yeah, Malenko gets a lot of props for his work in the cruiserweight division in WCW. However, Scotty 2 Hotty's sensational here. Him and Too Cool, I think, were in the wrong place in the wrong time, because they are the modern equivalent of New Day.
Yeah, definitely.
And obviously, after 2 pay-per-views, I've seen the Radicals just get beat by Too Cool in 6-man tags. It's nice to see the likes of Malenko and Scotty 2 Hotty in a singles match.
Yeah, it just felt really refreshing as well seeing, because when I started watching, I think this was about 4 or 5 years later. Like the only time I ever saw Scotty was on like that SmackDown sort of developmental show, Velocity, or if he was featured on the main roster, it would always just be in squash matches. So seeing this match, it was really refreshing to see like how good he actually is.
Yeah, I'm in Grandmaster of two people that their singles gimmicks didn't really work, so they got put together as a tag team, and I think it always gets lost at how good they were just on their own.
Yeah, like you compared them to the New Day as well. Like Big E on his own he was okay. Like he was a good, really solid worker in the ring, but I think he was just lacking a really good sort of character or gimmick. And then when the New Day came along, he really sort of found his rhythm.
Yeah, you could say the same with especially Kofi Kingston. He was just sort of a guy that was there for a long time.
I think his gimmick was just transitional champion.
Yeah, basically, like, we need somebody to win this title so someone else can win it.
So we can get a heel to win it off him, yeah.
Because did he not beat Cesaro?
He beat Cesaro, I think it was after Mania 29, yeah.
And then it was just to lose it to Dean Ambrose.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, just a pointless champion, and then obviously goes on to, become WWE champion. I'm not saying Scotty Too Hot, he could have been WWE champion, but I'm certainly saying that in a modern era, if they were allowed to do what the New Day did, they certainly could be up there.
I think social media kind of plays a factor as well, because this was a time where, the internet was still sort of in its growing stages. So I don't think they would have had as big an outreach back in sort of 2000 with Too Cool compared to what the New Day does, because they've got they appear on TV, they've got their podcast now, they've got merch flying off the shelves, and merch was actually pretty sort of simple back in the day, well, back in sort of 2000 era stuff, because they're mostly just black t-shirts with a simple logo on them.
Yeah. So it's a great back and forth match, as you said. Malenko puts on a clinic, he works the leg, he goes after Scotty Too Hotty. The finish comes, we think Scotty's going to go for a superplex. Malenko reverses at mid-air, top rope DDT, picks up the win.
What a spot.
An amazing spot.
Yeah. Like, normally you would see that maybe on NXT these days, so seeing them do it here, I mean, it just looked devastating, like a proper finish to the match. Like, because I mean, never mind, like, a DDT just from the mat is sore of itself. Imagine it from like the top rope.
See, I think something else, it's a wee underrated thing, it's just a wee thing, but see Scotty Too Hotty's like spiky hair. See, because you see it, like, obviously it's just his hair, so it's not going to hurt, but because you see that digging into the mat, you think, oh, that's his skull. There's that split second where you're like, oh god, he landed right in his head, and it adds that wee bit of, oh god.
Yeah, because it does give the impression that his head looks slightly bigger, yeah.
I mentioned that, I've had to cover two cool matches versus the Radicals, and they were just nothing matches. Guess what?
What?
In 6 days at Rebellion, Insurrection, sorry, I get to call Two Cools and the Radical 3 with David Campbell.
Brilliant.
As you can tell, I am buzzing for that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if this match was anything to go by, I'm sure it'll be great.
It's not, trust me. It's a run-of-the-mill tag match.
Fair enough. Like Edge and Christian versus DX.
Basically, aye.
That's a shame.
So, up next, Big Boss Man and his new apprentice, Big Barry Buchanan. Against Bill Buchanan's an athletic big man. He's another guy just kind of lost in the shuffle of wrestling's most successful period.
Like, for a big man, he is very, very agile. He was pulling a lot of really sort of fast-paced, high-flying moves in this match, and I found that really impressive.
Yeah, another thing as well, we talked about WrestleMania 2000. The hardcore match has teams like Kai and Tai, the Headbangers, APA, the Main Street Posse, whereas there's a lot of tag team matches where it's just singles guys mashed together. This is it's a fun match that could, because you hear JR saying this won't be an athletic match, this will be, a brawl. But it's a really actually quite fun match. There's 3 tag team matches on this show. This is my favourite of the 3, and this is another match you could have put on Mania as just like a fun opener.
Absolutely, yeah. I think out of the 3 on this show, I definitely enjoyed this one, largely because, well, much like Scotty Too Hottie, like, I didn't really see much of Bill Buchanan, like, because I think he had just left by the time I started watching.
Yeah, he was he was sort of a factions guy. He has this run with Bossman. He doesn't really do anything on his own. He then joins the Right to Censor, and then he disappears when that ends, and he resurfaces as John Cena's hype man, as B Squared.
Yeah, that's the last time I remember him seeing he was Cena's guy.
It's a shame as well, because you look at what WWE's looking for, and he has that WWE figure. He has the athleticism that wows the crowd. I think it was maybe just the fact that he wasn't very good at promos or didn't have much of a character.
Yeah, I think that lets a lot of the sort of bigger guys down. Those that can do all right in the ring, but they can't really sort of engage with the audience.
Yeah, but he does pick up the win for his team with an amazing leg drop. He goes like halfway across the ring.
Yeah, was it like an axe kick or something?
Yeah, and he just flies across the ring.
Yeah, like exactly. For a big man, he's so quick and so agile.
He has a match at Rebellion that I'm going to be covering with Kane. It only goes about 3 minutes, but he busts out some amazing moves.
I mean, just to see him going against a big name like Kane as well. I mean, just it's good for him in getting those highlights in.
Well, Kane wasn't on this pay-per-view because a few weeks before, post WrestleMania, Bill Buchanan and Bossman put Kane's hand in between the stairs and broke his hand.
Right.
And that's the match at Rebellion is basically a direct result of that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So we go backstage. We're going to get a hardcore 6-man scramble match. We see 2 loving brothers, Matt and Jeff, telling each other they will work together as long as possible, but in the end, may the best man win. They're loving brothers who look out for each other, sort of like
You
and Scott.
Yeah.
And then we see a big cousin slap his doofus younger cousin across the head. It's sort of like Derek and Steven.
Oh, your analogy is spot on there.
Hardcore. We see Crash try to give Hardcore the same sort of speech that Matt and Jeff gave each other. May the best man win. And Hardcore just scuds him across the head and goes, "The hell are you talking about, best man?" And he just looks at him disgusted and walks away.
Funny you should say that as well, because see that Derek and Steven analogy you do there? Derek is Steven's best man.
Oh, I cannot wait for that speech. I hope he just stands up like Hardcore Holly and slaps him in the back of the head.
You know what? Would you put a bet on it?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I don't think he'd slap him, because for as funny as it would be, Laura would slap Derek.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yes, and I think we can all agree on this podcast, and we're man enough to admit it, Laura would kick every one of their heads in.
Yep, absolutely.
So back to the wrestling. Hardcore 6-man match for the hardcore title. Unlike WrestleMania, this is going to be one fall to a finish, with the 24/7 rule suspended before and after. So it's a case of may the best man win. Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Hardcore Holly, Crash Holly, who's the champion, Perry Saturn, and Taz. So the match begins with Crash trying to do a run, only to get attacked by Perry Saturn. This is just car crash TV at its finest. This is what we want the 24/7 title to be.
But I think they just had the hardcore stipulation as well. Obviously, it was a really enjoyable sort of factor back in 2000. But The same thing could be said for the 24/7 title, but obviously WWE being a PG company now, they can't go too sort of crazy with it. But that's not to say, you know, they can't do like a table spot, you know, here and there, you know, because the 24/7 rules will still apply.
Yeah, no, 100%. So it's sort of car crash TV, as we said. We see Crash chase him up the ramp. This is something I miss from when they brought Backlash back. See the swinging blades that they have at the entrance ramp? Because there's so much you can do with them. We see Matt Hardy dive off them and take out all the competitors. We see Jeff Hardy use one for leverage to perform a Hurricane Rana.
Yep.
It's so much fun, and also it added to the yes, this is Backlash. This is the pay-per-view we like.
Yeah, let's integrate the set into all our spots. And I think we did the same thing in 2006, where Shawn Michaels went against Vince and Shane in that no-holds-barred handicap match, where I think Shawn threw Shane into that sort of blade-looking thing in the set, and it was he basically throws him into the set.
Yeah, we see it as well. No Way Out 2000 had a sort of Hell in a Cell inspired entranceway that allowed Kane and X-Pac to scrap up there. We saw Royal Rumble 2000 was set up like sort of a New York City back alley, which gave the street fight with Cactus Jack and Triple H that wee extra feel. Yeah, it's just these little things. Like David Campbell said it before, the current product seems too polished, whereas back in the day, it's these things that make, although people claim we look at the Attitude Era with rose-tinted glasses, these are the reasons why.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is that, I mean, as much as I like the whole hardcore stipulation, and, you know, Crash Holly comes out with his trolley full of stuff, it's just little things like that showing, right, we're going to use any and all of these items at some point or another. But what I didn't like about it was the fact that the only way to win this match was to pin Crash Holly. Whereas usually with like a multi-person match, it's usually first fall wins. It doesn't matter if the champion gets pinned or not.
Yeah, it is a bit of a pain of a stipulation, because it is very much a champion's advantage in the hardcore title situation. You know, he can pin anyone, but you can only pin him. I'd like to have seen it more of a championship scramble sort of thing.
Aye, definitely. But I like the introductions for both the Hollies as well, where it's like they both come out weighing allegedly 400 pounds. Again, another little thing, you know, you think, oh, you just can't help but laugh at.
Yeah. As much as I don't like it's just Crash, I think the one faulty finish aspect makes it a bit more tense. It makes you certainly pay attention more.
Well, I think maybe the one thing they could have done was say, make it like a hardcore, yeah, like the whole scramble scenario. Like give this match a set time limit. Any and all falls will count as a title change, and last person who gets the pinfall within the time walks away as the champion.
Well, they did do that at WrestleMania, but there was also one at Unforgiven 2000 where there was a 10-minute time limit. Any pins, much like Championship Scramble, don't count as they just count as interim champions. Yeah, you're basically an interim champion. It doesn't count in the long run.
Doesn't count
whoever
officially.
has it at the end of 10 minutes wins, and that gave it a bit more. But I do feel the one fall finish did add a bit of tenseness. But Crash lives up to his nickname, the Houdini of Hardcore. He basically takes advantage of the fact that the Hardys have taken out everyone, including Crash in the ring, including Taz, in the ring. He sneaks in, pins Taz, and then legs it.
Yeah, I mean that's all you need really. Just Crash needs the 1, 2, 3, and then he's free. But the Hardys really did work together really well. I think there was only one spot where they went against each other.
Yeah, I think that was pretty important, and I think it added a wee bit to the match, just the Hardys sticking to their word.
Yeah, but also you sort of had to wonder, you know, when was the moment that we're going to turn on each other? Because for the majority of it, they were using the ladder pretty well, you know, using it as a as a battering ram against Hardcore Holly and a few of the others, and then Jeff obviously doing the swanton off the top, which was always a great spot.
Yeah. So we move on from there to a clip backstage. It's Shane McMahon. He's the special guest referee of tonight's match. He says he's going to be a fair and impartial ref. I don't believe it when Willie Collum says it before the Old Firm games. I don't believe it when James McMahon says it here.
Oh, please don't talk about the Old Firm.
I miss Ryan on these shows. I need Ryan for those sort of jokes.
I mean, you are talking to a good boy here, but I'm not going to fall into the trap.
So next up, a sort of oh sweet Jesus style match.
It was just like blink and you miss it, really.
Yeah, we have the Big Show, who last month was in the WWF Championship match in the main event of WrestleMania. You have Kurt Angle, who held 2 titles in the European and Continental title. They are now in this match, and my God, me and Nathan talked on the Royal Rumble retro review that post Royal Rumble 2000, they absolutely ruined the Big Show's character. He's now been given the fat guy who likes to have fun and the guy who dresses up like other people's gimmick.
Yeah.
And it's just, they're 2 gimmicks that never work, but when you put them together, my God.
It's just so cringy.
It's cringeworthy, it's annoying, it's just... And then you wonder why Big Show was never as successful as he should have been. You look to things like this.
And we talked about Kurt Angle before, earlier this year as well. We had a show dedicated to him. We talked about, you know, his early days in the WWF when he came out as this sort of goofy patriot. Like he would say, I'm an American hero, you should be worshipping me. I think he was still sort of in that phase a bit. You know, he comes out with the gold medals and he almost patronizes to the crowd a bit.
Yeah, he's really, really good at this role. But there's one burning question. I've mentioned it on other retro reviews, and I want your take on it, Dave. Why do you look like a 2000s Kurt Angle?
Why I look like him?
Yes, he just reminds me of you.
I'm not entirely sure where that comes from, but is it just because of how looks physically, or just the way I act?
No, it's just the way he looks. He looks like you.
I mean, I've got the picture up here, and I can sort of see some similarities, but I think I'm starting to go the way of his hair right now.
It wasn't to do with the hair, it was just more in general. I thought you looked like him.
You know what? I think I'll take it on the chin, but I don't fully see it, but I can sort of see why.
Cap Dave 91 is his Twitter handle, people. If you want to see him on Twitter and see if he looks like a Kurt Angle.
Oh no, I think my Twitter feed has been violated enough this year. And if you don't get that, if you ask Kwaku, he'll explain the story.
Moving swiftly on. We talk about angles. You mentioned we had a show dedicated to Kurt Angle. We talk about his rise in the space of 1 year. You know, European champion, Intercontinental champion, King of the Ring, WWE champion, undefeated until from Survivor Series until the Royal Rumble. This match and a squash match with The Undertaker at Fully Loaded 2000, they never get mentioned. They've sort of been lost to history. They sort of get glossed over.
And for good reason as well, because what's there to remember about them? Given that, Kurt Angle was the victim of a squash match against the Big Show dressed up as Hulk Hogan.
Something as well. They keep calling him the Showster. Why would they not call him Hulk Shogun?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Call him, or maybe to go with his full title, the Big Shogun or something.
Yeah, just he I'll give you a wee preview of Insurrection. Do you know what he dresses up as at Insurrection 2000?
Viscera?
No, unfortunately not. He is teaming with Rikishi as Shokishi.
Oh my gosh. You know, this
He has
actually...
the full thong and everything.
Oh, jeez. You know what? This actually reminds me of when Charlie Haas was given the exact same gimmick in 2008.
Oh yeah, that was cringeworthy, that wasn't it?
Uh-huh. I mean, it's like, I don't know if they were just trying to recreate what they were trying to do with this, but it just died in its arse, and Charlie Haas was nowhere near a big enough name to sort of really capture the imagination of that gimmick.
We talk as well, Damien Sandow had that gimmick for a while, and what led to Mizdow, it was a case of thank God for the Mizdow thing, because the impressions thing was going nowhere.
Yeah, definitely. Like, Sandow was just in that literally could not give a monkey's jobber phase. Like, he was... I think he just sort of rolled with whatever he was given, and the WWE had just given up on him by that point. And he was Mr. Money in the Bank, like, the year before as well.
Yeah, it's just a sad state of affairs. But as much as we slag this sort of gimmick, Big Show's Hulk Hogan impression is bang on.
Yeah, that's the only thing I give him credit for, because I think he did it again at... I think he was doing a promo with the Straight Edge Society in 2010 during the sort of SummerSlam Night of Champions time of the year, and he actually did an impression of Hogan, and it was actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's really good at the Hogan impression. Big Show wins with a big choke slam. Not much to see here.
He did do the full big boot and leg drop like Hogan does.
Yeah, he's Hogan bit at the start. It's amazing, but the match itself just sort of it's all of 4 minutes, and you really don't need to see it.
Yeah, it's just one of those. Basically it's the toilet break match, unfortunately, and that's really bad considering that one of them is a current Hall of Famer, and one is probably going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree with you there. Next up, the Dudleys versus Test and Albert with Trish Stratus. This is during Bubba Dudley's phase where he liked to put women through tables. He did it to Terry.
Mm-hmm.
He did it to Lita. He did it to Mae Young. And now it seems like Trish is tempting fate, trying to lure him in. But before we talk about this match, right before a match with TNA, we see Smashing Pumpkins frontman and former TNA owner Billy Corgan. 17 years later, he would buy a company called TNA.
Mad.
It's just one of those wee fun things I quite enjoyed. Billy Corgan now running the NWA, of course, an amazing corporation. And if you would like to hear NWA Power Hour with Scott and Stephen, or the NWA Into the Fire preview with special guest myself, that's also on our Patreon, so listen to it once you finish this.
I would say plenty to choose from.
Exactly. So we see that Trish has tempted fate a couple of times, but every time she looks like she's about to go through a table, she kisses Bubba and gets away. Straight from the get-go, when the bell rings here, Bubba chases Trish, and then once he gets back in the ring, gets taken out by Test. This is just your standard fair tag match, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty solid tag match where I think the story behind it kind of overarches the match itself. But in all honesty, I actually thought it was quite an interesting story, like, because there was a bit of suspense, like this thing, will Trish get put through a table, or will she get the upper hand over Bubba, with, you know, him basically becoming infatuated with her almost at the same time.
Yeah, it's a third tag match in the night, though. You know, we mentioned WrestleMania, a lot of tag team matches on it. As much as WWF had a stacked roster, when the likes of Kane, Taker, Rikishi and whatnot were off the cards, they resorted to just random tag matches, and as you said, this one has a story, but not much of one, and it's...
At least it was something.
For me, it's the weakest tag match of the show, to be honest with you.
What, even worse than Edge and Christian and DX?
it's standard fare, and I think the guys in that match sort of made it for me. Plus the title being on the line, I think it's a bit more interesting. Something else as well. It's the third tag match of the night. It's also the third tag match to have the face get tagged in, the ref being distracted by the heel, and then the ref tells them out the ring, I didn't see the tag. 3 tag matches and 3 spots exactly the same.
It's like they copy and pasted a solution for all the tag team matches.
Yeah. So the actual match itself, it ends when Trish distracts Bubba Dudley in the middle of a 3D. This allows Test to take out Bubba for the win. But post-match, the Dudleys get their revenge. Trish plants a kiss on Bubba. You think Bubba's about to go into that trance, and Trish is going to get away again, and Bubba just gives her a look as if to go, yeah, not this time. No, not this time. It's an amazing table swap. Fair play to Trish for taking this. Bubba just pulled back here.
Absolutely. I think the last time I saw him do a spot like that, he did it to Dixie Carter. But that was I don't think that one wasn't as impressive, because you can clearly see Bubba just goes through the table himself. He just sits through it, then Dixie misses it completely. But this one, Trish took the brunt of it.
We cut backstage. There's a limo pulling up. You see Chyna and Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero just got his GED and had attended his prom. They've arrived at the arena straight from the prom. Eddie Guerrero's told by a referee, if you're not out in the arena now, you'll forfeit the European title. So they decide to drive their car into the arena. Eddie gets ready with the trunk of his car and wrestles in the match with a cummerbund and bow tie on. He's the only person that could get away with this. He just oozes charisma, doesn't he?
Eddie Guerrero, it's easy to see why he's a lot of people's favourites of all time, because the guy can do no wrong when it comes to bringing out his character. And the fact that he comes out with he's dressed in his tux, but then has to sort of make quick preps, it's funny just thinking about it. And him and Chyna, they have amazing chemistry with each other. Yeah.
This is the start of the Mamacita Latino Heat gimmick. And this gimmick is one I think could have went years.
You think? I don't know. I think low-riding Latino Heat Eddie was kind of my favourite, but this Mamacita one, it definitely was a strong one.
I think you still could have had lowrider Eddie, but I think this one could have went a year or 2 longer. But unfortunately, they decided to split them up when Eddie got back with the Radicals in November time. So, European Championship, Eddie Guerrero with Chyna in his corner versus Esse Rios with a very, very young Lita in his corner. Esse Rios is so young here. He is only 37, I believe, and he's like modern. Yeah, he's only 37 currently.
Oh, just now?
Yeah, do you think I meant then?
Yeah, I was confused for a moment. So, he was 18 at the time.
He was 18 when he broke into WWF, yeah.
Bad.
Esse Rios, so young, but much like Bill Buchanan, he's just another young guy lost in the shuffle.
So, and this is what I liked about this match, is the fact that it was 2 sort of Latino superstars showing that high-flying luchador style, and I think this was a trend that I really started to pick up on at this match. Like, although yes, there were sort of 3 tag team matches that were essentially copy and paste, the overall match quality to this point, it's actually been very well rounded.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, my bad. He's 41 currently, so
41.
He's about.
So he would have been 22.
Yeah.
Still very young.
Yeah, no, very, very young, but maybe just a bit too young at the time.
Maybe, yeah. But then again, how many like talent do you see that age in WWE just now? I mean, just look at Rhea Ripley. She's only 23.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's more just, it's
Tyler-
shocking for the time.
Yeah, Tyler Bate as well, 22.
Yeah, like I said, maybe it's just a case of it's shocking for its time.
Because when you're used to seeing all these established veterans around there, and I think all the sort of top talent, those that would sort of main event WrestleMania and that, they were all sort of born post or pre 1985.
Yeah, and maybe with like the exception of The Rock.
I think Rock was like, I don't remember now. I think he's 1979, 78.
1972.
So 2. Wow.
Yeah, and the only reason I remember The Rock's birthday is because
You follow him
his
obsessively.
same year of birth as my mother.
Right, got you.
Well, I say it's the only reason I remember my mum's year of birth is because it's the same year of birth as The Rock.
I mean, any excuse, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. How weird was it to see Lita here, not with the Hardys?
Yeah, it was weird given that, because Lita and the Hardys are so well associated with each other. This was kind of when Lita was sort of breaking into WWF herself, wasn't it? And I think Trish sort of highlighted it in a sort of promo package in 2005 or 2004, and she was talking about her sort of career up to WWE at that point, and the first person she mentioned was Essa Rios.
Fair enough. It's a fast-paced, high-flying match. Essa Rios is hitting dives over the top rope, off the top rope, suicide dives over the turnbuckle. Essa Rios here looks amazing, and Eddie Guerrero's selling as he's falling about in his dress shoes is just amazing.
Yeah, I like Essa Rios. I think if he was miles ahead of it, he was years ahead of his time, I reckon, given that, Lucha Libre wasn't really taken, much like women's wrestling, it didn't really have a big enough spotlight on it. But nowadays, you see so many companies who are usually specialized in a certain area. Like, I think if he was, is he still competing today?
I believe he's still wrestling in Mexico for AAA.
Right. See, I think if he was born maybe 10 years later, I think he would have done amazing in Lucha Underground.
Yeah, he's wrestling in CMLL and AAA. He is known as Mr. Aguila.
Mr. Aguila, okay.
That was his original WWF name when he won the light heavyweight championship.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know much else about him, because he was, I think what Trish mentioned in the promo as well, is that, it was he sort of faded away into nothing after a few years. Like, there wasn't really any sort of marquee moment that really stood out about him.
Something I've noticed here, he has lost, hold on, 1, 2, 3, he has lost 3 hair versus hair matches.
Oh god, so he gets shaved bald every time?
Yeah, he lost 1 at the 50th anniversary de Arena Mexico on April 28th, 2006. He lost 1 at Sin Payada in December 2010. And in July 2013, Inferno El Ring, 3 hair v hair matches he lost.
Jesus.
Yeah, I think maybe he should stop. Oh, sorry. He then won a hair versus hair match earlier this year against Dark Oz on October 19th. There you go. So at least he's won 1.
Aye, fair enough.
So Eddie Guerrero gets the win, big airplane spin and a neck breaker. But I think the main story is after the match.
Mm-hmm. I can see where you're going with this.
Essa is a sore loser. Lita is the one she finds because China threw her to the Dudleys to get put through a table. As they strip China of her dress, and she just sort of stands up. And when she this was sort of a transitional time for China as well. You seen the promo package when Eddie tells her she's beautiful. She starts to cry a wee bit. This is because she was always known as like the heavy. She was never seen as like a woman. She was just seen as a bodyguard. So when Eddie's jaw's on the floor and when Eddie's fascinated by her, she just sort of stands up, shows that it doesn't bother her, and just kind of embraces Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, it is one of these ones. See, when you look at it from just a single show perspective, it is a case of typical Baran Panties Attitude Era.
Mm-hmm.
But then,
Like,
when you see
like
it from the
same with Trish as well. Same with Trish as well. Like, yes, same with Trish as well. Like, she was in like a very sort of skimpy outfit earlier on as well. It was like, you know, she had the sports bra, the hot pants, and then just a big long trench coat with a cowboy hat. It just looked really, really much like eye candy. And I think this was kind of what all the women were used for, because there was no women's matches on this show. And then it's like, how are we going to get the women involved? Oh yeah, let's get them as naked as possible.
The fact is, this is more of a body positivity storyline, not just a let's have Trish scantily clad. It's a case of it's China sort of accepting herself and Eddie accepting China. So I think it does have a purpose when you know the long story, but I can see why people are like, yeah, let's not like praise that if they've only seen this show.
It definitely seemed like there was a bit of story behind it as well, because I think it definitely added a sort of like a step up in the sort of Eddie-China relationship as well. So I suppose it's a positive result.
We see a third McMahon promo of the night. Load of pish. Thought this ended at WrestleMania. This continues into Rebellion and all the way to King of the Ring 2000 before eventually this McMahon Helmsley faction stops.
Seems like such a long time.
It is pretty brutal, and if you wonder why in the current product people are sick of it, this is why. So up next, Intercontinental title, Chris Benoit, who's current champion, Chris Jericho, the challenger. Benoit gets an interview by Michael Cole. Michael Cole says he's called you robotic, and Benoit says, no, robots don't have emotions, and I'm going to enjoy hurting Chris Jericho. He then says he will enjoy unloading all over Chris Jericho. That's a Charles Boyle level overtly sexual remark. Yeah,
like as soon as he said that, I'm thinking, right, where's Scott Mills and innuendo bingo?
It's a good back and forth match, but my God, see, we mentioned how every tag match had the whole partner gets tagged in, rest distracted spot. See, in the Attitude Era, see when Chris Jericho had a match, there was constantly a ref bump.
Yeah, I did notice that. There was another one with Tim White, the ref, yeah.
He has it with... It happens at No Way Out 2000, when he fights Kurt Angle. It happens Raw after Mania 2000, where he fights Eddie Guerrero. It happens, I believe, the next month, when he fights Eddie Guerrero again at Rebellion. It happens constantly. You just think Chris Jericho would stop going for these big dives when the ref's standing there.
Yeah, it's obviously a lesson never learned, and it's the same sort of copy and paste formula with the tag team matches, only in this case it's ref bumps.
Benoit brings the title into the ring and hits Jericho on the back of the head. He then back body drops him on it. He goes to the top rope and goes for a big diving headbutt, but Jericho moves the title as the referee comes to. Benoit headbutts the title. Referee calls for the bell. Jericho's irate when Tim White DQs him. So I think it's quite funny after the match that he floors him.
Yeah, it was a bit weird, that finish, because I mean, I didn't know what went on until like we saw the replay and JR was sort of getting a second look at it as well. I wasn't really sure who was the face and who was the heel in this, because both of them could have been either. But I think it's the fact that the way the ref saw it is that, well, even though Benoit brought the title in the ring and went for the diving headbutt, I think JR originally thought that Jericho sort of hit him as he was coming down, but it turns out he just rolled out the way and the title just happened to be there. And then the ref obviously calling the DQ when Jericho didn't really do anything wrong.
I never actually noticed that. I thought Jericho moved it across.
No, I don't think that was the case. I think he was just hitting the back. He was sort of lying on top of it. he rolled out of the way, and then Benoit headbutted it by accident. And I think that's why Jericho sort of lost the plot a bit, because he didn't really hit him with the title. He just sort of, the title was there. And I think this is when JR had to correct himself. It was like he thought Jericho had hit Benoit, but actually the title was just there and Jericho rolled out the way.
Fair enough. So we now get to the main event. There's a promo with The Rock, and with all the talk of the McMahon family drama and where's Stone Cold, and the thread throughout the night is Austin's not here, Austin's had transport issues. You'd be forgiven for forgetting that the hottest star in wrestling was in this match.
Yeah, what, The Rock?
Yes.
I did notice as well, like Vince said, he picked up on something that I think a lot of fans, like, it catches a lot of people out. Says, the fine print says card subject to change.
Yeah, that's obviously, we'll get to that in a wee sec, but just The Rock's promo, it's the second month in a row this has happened. Like, they've tried to push the McMahon family drama and Triple H as the stars, and the WWF title and The Rock have sort of fell into the background. If you wonder why people hate pre-NXT Triple H, here's why.
Because he was like, the mega heel who was just sort of making it all about him.
Yeah, it was just so overpushed, and people noticed it more like 2002, 2003, 2004, when he had that grip on the World Heavyweight title. But my God, it's abundantly clear here.
One thing I will give Triple H credit for, like, see when he came out and just in this match in general, he looked like an absolute boss. Like, and we used this term before, he looks like the final boss of a wrestling video game.
That is very true. He is built like but yeah, so WWF Championship, The Rock, instead of Stone Cold in his corner versus Triple H, Stephanie and Vince in his corner. Shane McMahon is going to get referee. You alluded to it before. Card subject to change, and Stone Cold will not be in The Rock's corner tonight because he cannot make the arena. Has there ever been a time when someone has been told on air he can't make it? Have they ever not made it?
There was actually one that I do remember. It was Taboo Tuesday 2005, where I think it was meant to be Stone Cold versus the Coach, but then for some reason...
I don't mean that. I mean in storyline, like...
Oh, right.
When they come out and they go, he will not be here tonight, or he's banned through the arena. That's basically code for he'll be back at the finish.
Actually, yeah, I've seen that quite a few times. I think most recently is with Rusev and the restraining order.
Yeah. So card subject to change. We see The Rock, we see Triple H. They have a really good back and forth match, and you're looking at this, you see like the closing stages of WrestleMania 2000 itself, when it's just The Rock and Triple H left in the match. They have really good chemistry together, but it's just frustrating that they felt the need to just overbook it with McMahon family drama. Shane is the ref. There's a McMahon family member in every corner. Here's Big Show. Here's Triple H. Here's Mick Foley. Here's Stone Cold. They could have had such good matches, just Rock versus Triple H.
Like, they definitely did sort of book themselves into a corner just by giving his... He just gave it too much, like oversaturating it. But I think the match itself this match was actually really good. A bit of a slow burner at first, and then obviously with Shane as the ref, you have to think, right, is he going to fast count for Triple H, or is he not going to count for The Rock? So definitely that intrigue. It was a stacked deck against The Rock, and it added to the fact that, well, Stone Cold wasn't going to be there, quote unquote.
Yeah. So we see The Rock, a couple of big falls. Shane does the slow count. He does the whole I'm not going to count. He taunts The Rock in the whole smell motion, and the match just erupts into chaos. You've got the members of DX there, you've got the Stooges, you've got The Rock attacking Shane McMahon, And then when it looks like The Rock is down and they're going to just put the final nail in his coffin, the glass shatters. It's the first time since Survivor Series we've seen in an arena Stone Cold Steve Austin. My God, the place, there's not a pop like it, a Stone Cold pop.
Yeah, the arena practically just blew the roof off.
And I think the best thing is, like, as much as we said, you know, it's the age-old, like, banned for the arena, card subject to change, he's not going to be here. You know, when people are expecting someone's entrance, it kind of dies the pop down a wee bit. But when you're not expecting it, it adds so much to it.
Definitely. Like when he sort of came out during when Mankind won the WWE title for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, that was the kind of pop I felt.
And all this, like you mentioned at the start, some of the chair shots he hits, like he hits Briscoe and Patterson over the head with the chair. He rattles Triple H with it.
Oh yeah.
There's so many good chair shots here, and it's peak Austin, where it's just arrive, raise hell, leave, as the t-shirt says.
Yep. One thing I do look at it with a little bit of a look back, sort of in a somber mood, is that, you know, obviously before WWE's concussion policy was introduced, like almost all those chair shots were to the head.
See, in the lead, like the previous retro reviews we've done, sort of the Royal Rumbles, the No Way Outs, the WrestleManias, the chair shots to the head I've looked at sort of like, oh God, but it's just something different when it's Austin. I think because you're expecting it from him, they're just white.
Like a rise, raise hell, leave. He just does it so well.
Yeah. Linda McMahon appears with the recently reinstated Earl Hebner, and when The Rock hits the people's elbow, Linda turns, gives Earl Hebner a nod. He runs into the ring. 1, 2, 3. The arena erupts. All is right with the world, David, because The Rock is the WWF champion.
Yeah, and I think it rectified what I think WrestleMania 2000 should have done.
Yeah, no, 100%. WrestleMania 2000, there has never been a WrestleMania up until that point that went off the air with the heel still as champion. And I don't think, like people mentioned Triple H's like pull, I think there is exaggerated stories, and then there's very well put together stories like this one, where it's like, if it wasn't for him dating Stephanie at the time, he wouldn't have won that match. So I think this was sort of an apology to the fans, this pay-per-view.
Yeah, like sort of rectifying a mistake. And it's a shame that that sort of mistake had to happen at WrestleMania, their biggest show of the year. And I think that's definitely what damaged its credibility in the sort of long run.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of, like, 2000s sort of gets overlooked, I think, because his like reign of terror, 2002 to 2004, was just so bad. But
yeah.
I think that the likes of this era get forgot about, but it's when you go back and look at it and you're like, that's the authority angle we're using in 2019. That's the, that's the overcoming the odds baby face we've got in 2019. That's the, arrive, raise hell, leave Kevin Owens we've got in 2019. He's got Stone Cold in 2000. You know what I mean? It's just, and the fact that Triple H is still about wrestling. Something I want your opinion on here. Gary mentioned that, and I picked up on it as well. WWF was, the cool promotion. WCW was dying, ECW was dying, WWF was at its peak. WWE now seems to get unwarranted stick at times. Do you think that's through the whole authority angle being overdone for the simple fact they turned the company into the bad guy?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, because you could say yes, but at the same time, there's a case for and against. That's kind of what I'm saying. What I think was good about WWF is that compared to today, you know, because back then, you know, things weren't as progressive as they are now. It was just, some people just enjoy just the sheer anarchy, chaos, and unpredictability of the Attitude Era. And the fact that you had really charismatic main event performers, as we discussed before, like, even if any of them got injured or, you know, went to a different company, there was always going to be someone to fill their spot. And I think it was being able to sort of have a backup plan in case, you know, any of their big names get injured. And they could be also a bit risky with the storylines a bit, you know, because, you know, things like sex sales, or they could, you know, do something a much more edgy. And nowadays they can't really do that because, you know, they're trying to come across as a really sort of positive, family-friendly PG company. So some things are at best limited, at worst off limits.
No, I do think that is a good point, but I think WWE has turned, you know, themselves into, oh god, that company, just I think through the same authority figure angle, which paints the company as the bad guy. So if you do it enough on screen, people will believe it off screen. And I think, you know, we've heard so many tall tales, some true, some not true, but true about Vince McMahon. I think just all this, it works against the company, you know what I mean? They were the cool, progressive company at the time. And I think they've gave themselves that reputation.
I think it's all just boils down to repetition. They're always just playing it safe. They never really had a true sort of storyline that really captured an audience's imagination, that it got people talking, it got them involved in debates. You know, it's kind of like a situation where, kind of like maybe Sasha and Bayley, for example. Why couldn't they sort of touch on the fact that Bayley started acting more heelish out of, say, blind loyalty, which I think's prevalent in a lot of cases in the real world today. You do something surely out of partisan loyalty rather than looking at, you know, facts or the way sort of thing, like given circumstances and stuff.
That's a good point. So we're going to wrap up here. David, just wanted to ask, what was your match of the night on this card?
See, I'm kind of torn between two because I really enjoyed the hardcore match, but I also liked... I think I'm going to give it to this one because it was a genuinely good match right the way through, and it actually surprised me because I think it was a better match than I anticipated it would be. So I'm going to say match of the night is going to be the light heavyweight title match between Dean Malenko and Scotty.
I would tend to agree with you. And what would you say was your worst match of the night?
Big Show, Kurt Angle.
Well, I think we're 2 for 2 there, Dave, because I 100% agree with you there.
Yeah? I very nearly said the hardcore match as well, but I don't know, there was just something about the light heavyweight title match that just gave it that X factor and sort of the seal of approval.
That's fair enough. It's your decision. I was split between this, the light heavyweight title match, and the main event, but I think just purely on wrestling, the light heavyweight title has got to take it.
I think main event would have been my third choice, in all honesty.
So it's not too bad in a match of 10, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that is going to do it for us. Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed what you hear, Ross's Retro Review, we have more in our back catalogue. We have a Royal Rumble 2000 review with Nathan, a No Way Out 2000 review with Scott, a WrestleMania 2000 bumper review with myself, Derek and Gary. You've got this one with Dave Haughney. I have 3 coming up. Insurrection, I keep calling it Rebellion, I don't know why. Insurrection 2000 with David Campbell, the GOAT. Judgment Day 2000 with our newest team member, Jack Graham. And King of the Ring 2000, Scott will be returning to the show. It's a show me and him had on VHS. We have watched it to death. I cannot wait to overanalyse it from what I used to think to what I think now. If you would like to see anyone on the podcast, just use the hashtag ESSR, the hashtag Ross's Retro Review. Tweet me who you'd like to see on the show. Would you like to see Stephen say, well, clear of this show? Would you like to see Sarah on the show? Stacey, Kwaku? Would you like to see our newest member, Daniel Campbell? Would you like to see either of the Ryans from the Talking Smack show? Who would you like to see appear on the show? Give us a tweet at RossMcLeod1993 or at Suplex Retweet and let me know who you'd like to see on the show. And as always, suplexretweet.com. You can find links to all our social media, all our free content, and to our Patreon page where you see great shows like this. Wednesday Night Wars, hosted by my guest here, David Haughney.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Raw Report with Stephen Wilson. Talking Smack with Ryan and Ryan. NWA Power with Scott and Stephen. Chris and Nathan with their Monday Night Rewind. Kwaku and Sarah with
Indie Sausage Roll.
Scottish Indie Show, which I am calling Indie Sausage Roll.
And I second that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Scott seconded it as well, as has David Campbell. We've got 4 votes.
4 votes for Indie Sausage Roll.
We also had Saturday Draft Live. You can catch up on all of us and our draft picks. We run a fantasy draft here at ESSR. Scott and David run down the show every week. There is so much on there, so much to come. We hope you'll part with your cash and give it to us. But until then, thank you very much to David.
Thank you.
And I've been Ross McLeod. I will see you next time to review Insurrection 2000 with David Campbell. Bye bye.
See ya.